poachers stumble into pride of lions, and that's when the screams started. A group of poachers had their sights set on killing big game. Before they could do that, however, they stumbled into a pride of lions, and that's when the screams started. People near the Ingwelala Private Nature Reserve in Hoedspruit, just outside of Philebra in South Africa's Limpopo province, were left stunned when they heard the screams of a man, and the alarm was raised as a big cat poacher was not only mauled to death but also eaten by a pride of lions that he was hunting. The big cats were eventually chased off by gunshots, but not before devouring most of the poacher's body while leaving behind his untouched head on the border of the Umbabat Game Reserve and the Ingwelala Game Reserve, according to Daily Mail. Although police first thought the mauled man was a tractor driver who worked at the reserve, that man turned up alive. That's when police in Limpopo asked for help from the Department of Home Affairs in order to identify the dead man. Further investigations led authorities to believe the deceased, who had no documents on him, was a poacher. The process of identifying this body has already commenced, and it might be made easier as his head was among the remains found at the scene, South African Police Service Lieutenant Colonel Motshenkope said at the time. In the course of the investigation, at least one hunting rifle was found near the scene of the attack, leading authorities to consider the possibility that the deceased man was a poacher. The head was still there, but the lions had eaten most of the rest, a local worker from the nearby reserve added, while also describing the area as lion territory. A scream was heard and the lions were scattered by the sound of gunshots, but it was too late to do anything for him. He was eaten. British wildlife photographer Charlie Linham, who lives close to the Ingwelala Reserve, arrived at the gates shortly after the alarm was raised and paramedics raced to the scene. He was told that the suspected poacher was killed, but it was still unclear whether the attack happened in the Ingwelalan area or in a neighboring reserve. Linham then gave his account of what happened, according to his understanding. It turns out it was not the resident pride that lives here, Ingwelala, responsible as they were on a buffalo kill at the time of the incident, but a pride perhaps come over from the Kruger National Park, he said. It happened on the border of the Umbabat Game Reserve after dark and may have been on their reserve, Linham added. 2.456 big game rifles and ammunition were found at the scene, and that is the weapon of choice used by those hunting big game, especially elephant and rhino in the bush, the wildlife photographer continued. I cannot say if it was poachers as the matter is under investigation, but that is their weapon of choice and they usually work in groups of 3 and work under cover of darkness, he furthered. 2 sets of footprints have been found running away and obviously the dead and eaten man, Linham added. Lions are not a particular danger in daylight but after dark, then that is another matter, he continued. It is purely speculation on my part, but it would seem they either walked into a pride of lions in the darkness or they were stalked and attacked and a man was taken down and eaten, he added. The other 2 it seems ran off and 2.456 big game rifles were found and ammunition. Linham, who has spent several years photographing the resident Ingwelala pride, said that he was concerned in case it was them, in case they got accused of attacking humans and there were calls to kill them, adding, but it was not our pride and was probably one from the Kruger that come over the border. He then warned, if you go out walking in the bush in the dark, then I am afraid you are fair game in the wild and there is no way that anyone can attribute any blame to those lions for this kill, adding that it would seem very possible that you have poetic justice here. Eventually, the poacher was identified as 50-year-old David Baloyi from Mozambique, according to Daily Mail. It was also confirmed that he had been hunting illegally on the game reserve after he and 2 other armed men trekked from their village, carrying powerful hunting rifles, into the Umbabat Game Reserve late that fateful night. Baloyi's screams for help panicked the other 2 poachers, who fled the scene like cowards, leaving behind the 2.456 Winchester rifles rather than attempting to use them to save their companion, showing the true characters of poachers. The dead man's sister-in-law later received a phone call from her family in Mozambique, telling her that the 2 other poachers had said her brother-in-law had been eaten by lions in South Africa. She went to the police station and was taken to the hospital where she identified the very little remains that were left behind, confirming the head had belonged to her brother-in-law. There was only the head to identify him by, and it was not in good condition and there was a lot of blood, but we have now got a positive identification and we are satisfied it is him, Lieutenant Colonel Ngope said. You can't run from karma. What goes around, comes around.